think sums up pretty well what their position was when he made his presentation to the city council last Monday. Can you play that, please?
We would just remind you of what you probably already watched on the news or read in the newspaper or heard about the church or in the barbershop. All true stories spread over a span of 2 years, heard and forgotten. One side of the story told, the other not. We will share with you what has already been reported. We will connect the dots. Give the other side of the story. We will leave you feeling the same way we African American officers feel. We will leave you demanding the answers as to why these injustices to your African American officers are taking place. In the midst of the storm we stand, not just the thing, but currently the way a majority of the black police officers feel. The storm, a metaphor for the way our feelings have evolved into a tempest over how we perceive we have been treated by the current police administration. Standing together, as we are doing now, is what we must do to secure a fair working environment for those blacks currently working and those who may one day wear the uniform that symbolizes protection, safety, and trust. Things we as black officers don't feel under this administration. We would urge all citizens to demand answers and to dig to the bottom of the reported stories, especially as it relates to African American police officers' conduct in this community. In order to give you some perspective on the perceived disparity in disciplinary practices under this administration, the bar must be set. You must be given the worst event involving a police officer in which the officer did not lose his or her job. The bar is, as reported by numerous media outlets, a white officer that was involved in an off-duty car accident in which 2 individuals lost their lives. This white officer was criminally charged and later found guilty by a jury of his peers of 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Punishment by the police department, a suspension. The same white officer was recently promoted to the rank of sergeant under this current administration. 2 lives lost, a criminal conviction, the punishment, a suspension. A return to full duty is recently a promotion. If you would hold that in your right hand, feel the severity of the crime, the lightness of the punishment. Recently, a different white officer pled guilty to a misdemeanor crime of disorderly conduct in the city close to Flint. The punishment, a suspension. A crime, a plea, a suspension. Under this current police administration, a black officer was charged with tampering with evidence. The officer was fired from the Flint Police Department. The case was ultimately thrown out of court not once, not twice, but 3 times. One of the judges called the black officer a hero for his actions he took during the incident that surrounded the dismissal from the department. 2 years after being fired, almost a year after the case being thrown out of court, this officer has still not been brought back to work. I ask you, does the weight seem equal? No. The administration, can you all understand? You guys have done very professional. Thank you. The administration made this officer fight for his job through arbitration. This officer has still not been brought back to work. No criminal conviction, no plea, not even a trial. Still not made whole. Under this current police administration, a different black officer was charged with larceny from a building. This officer was fired. The prosecutor decided to drop the case, saying he could not prosecute the officer for what is common practice at the Flint Police Department. This officer has still not been brought back to work. Home lost, credit destroyed, humiliated the past 2 years. Since the case was dropped in June, the officer has not been made whole. No criminal conviction, no plea, charges dropped, punishment fired. Does this weight seem equal? Under this current police administration, a black officer was involved in a high-speed chase, backing up a supervisor, doing the performance of his duties. While trying to capture criminals, an accident occurred. This accident resulted in the tragic death of an officer, Warren Fisher. The black officer, after months of recovering from injuries he sustained during the accident, returned back to work. Shortly thereafter, he was fired by this current police administration for his actions during the accident. No charges were ever filed, no conviction, just an officer involved in an accident while chasing a criminal. officer has not been brought back to work. He has been forced to fight for his job through arbitration, and I ask again, does the weight seem equal? Bear with me. Under this current police administration, a black officer was charged with assault and battery. A black officer attempted to pull a male white arrestee from a cruiser after he refused to get out in a predominantly African-American community in which he was stopped. The male white alleged he was beaten by a black officer and made a complaint. 6 months after the complaint was filed, an assault and battery warrant was issued. The black officer was stripped of his gun and badge and relieved of duty. As the Flint Journal reported just last week, Judge McCare dismissed the charges when the Flint Police Department refused to hand over to the defense a copy of their investigation. The case was dropped, case dismissed, no conviction, no plea, no trial. This officer has still not been brought back to work. Coincidentally, the same officer wrote a letter to the Flint Journal that was published. The letter criticized the Flint Police Administration. This current police administration was instructed by a court order to return to work a black officer who had been placed on leave. This officer has been put back to work, however he still has no gun, and they put him back to work in the basement, putting together shelves. He now shuffles papers in an office. This being said, I ask of you,